Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
Since my temple recommend expired around 2021, I have been trying to get it renewed. On this channel and publicly, I've been trying to model a position of someone who is talking candidly and honestly about the problems in the church while remaining actively engaged. There are many in the church who need this space to be held, and I've done my best for them. But today, it became clear that I will never obtain a temple recommend, not while remaining true to the principles of honesty and integrity the church instilled in me. The standards of honesty that members of the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 failed to uphold. That failure to uphold those standards was presented to Dallin in a 3,500 word document, which the Office of the First Presidency requested I send to him for formal investigation. The only response he offered, regarding his remarks at the University of Virginia, was simply to send me to a church apologist institution. He failed to defend any of his colleagues and couldn't even defend himself personally against the evidence presented to him. It was evidence of 11 instances of public dishonesty by 7 of the 15 top leaders of the church, and he was assigned to investigate it. His reply contained no opinions of his own making on the matter of his own honesty and that of his fellow apostles and presidency members. He offered no defense of his own making. In failing to defend what he promised he would investigate, it is a tacit admission of guilt. This dishonesty was the basis of my opposing votes, and given that neither I nor my stake president received any personal denial that Dallin and 6 other apostles had lied publicly, then why should I be expected to sustain men who Dallin himself tacitly admitted were lying, some of them repeatedly, while acting as apostles and representatives of Jesus Christ? This is the impossible position me and my local leaders have been put in. I can't sustain the Quorum of the 12 and First Presidency because they have tacitly admitted to us that they are liars, and somehow feel justified to the extent they don't even need to defend it. In not sustaining them, I cannot gain a temple recommend. But why should I have to sustain men who lie while claiming to speak for Jesus in order to be able to go and worship in the temple? No one can answer this question. But what I have been told is that I shouldn't be calling them liars publicly. I was told that by the same local leaders who bore witness to Dallin failure to defend himself or the other church leaders. From previous experience, this seems to be the last port of call for local church leaders to become the tone police. It's not that you can't say these things, just don't say them this way. The senior leaders of the LDS Church are lying, and yet I am punished by denial of a temple recommend. And it goes further. In failing to obtain a temple recommend through these conversations, I am unable to use the priesthood for blessings or ordinances. I am paying the price for the dishonesty of the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12. I am unable to enter the temples that they are allowed to dedicate, using a priesthood that I am no longer allowed to exercise. Setting apart Sarah Delaney of 21st Century Saints as a stake safeguarding officer could likely be the last time I will exercise the priesthood. I have done everything this system has asked of me, in good faith, up to and including going through the priesthood ranks to have the evidence of dishonesty amongst the senior leaders of the church addressed by those senior leaders of the church. My reward? Second-class membership in this church. Because apparently you can't seek after the truth in this church, not without being punished. So why don't they just go the whole hog and excommunicate me? Well, I think the logic goes that they can hold me in this limbo space as a second-class member of the church who cannot attend the temple and use the priesthood. So they can silo me there. They don't need to go down the excommunication road. As far as they're concerned, I'm made impotent, and I'm not able to get what I want out of the church, and that is punishment enough. They don't need to excommunicate me with all the negative PR that would come with. The church also probably feels like they have more control over me, because at the moment they feel they can micromanage every aspect of my church participation. But you know what? They can't. I am still a member of this church, something that everyone celebrated as my choice when I was 8 years old. And I will continue to engage with this church with integrity, honesty, and a refusal to accept that those who claim to speak for God should be allowed to lie to us with impunity. I will continue to use my priesthood and my membership in this church to make a difference. And if they want that to stop, they will have to take it from me. Hi everyone, welcome to a live stream. I've been watching you all in the chat while I put that video out. That video was a way for me to kind of bring you all up to speed with where this journey's brought me to so far, and now to kind of digest it and talk about it, I've got all the Brit Vengers with me. And if I look tired tonight, it's because I am. It's been a bit of a roller coaster of a day, but we're here to have a good chat about everything that's going on. So say hi, everyone. Unmute yourselves, please.
Hey everyone.
Evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
So these are the lovely people that I debrief with when I come back from a bishop's interview or any of these things, or attending church and stuff has just not gone well. And so we're having a bit of a debrief this afternoon and thought, why don't we do a panel about it? Because let's be honest, all the good points you hear on my channel really come from these people. I'm a fraud, really. I just rip off these folks. So, you know, I was like, why not just bring them on the show and they can make the great points themselves? So we basically have 21st century saints, and then Peter Bleakley of Mormon Civil War, and then me. So it's a very female heavy panel tonight, as it should be.
Yes.
First thoughts on that video, everyone.
Wow, you tell them. The gloves are off, as someone said in the comments.
Yeah, someone did say that in the chat.
Yeah,
the
very
gloves are off.
powerful.
Very powerful, very
Yeah.
emotional and very powerful, and actually showed that you've tried to hold a space that you value, that you love, that you want to hold, and they're just trying to avoid giving you any chance to move forward. It's like hold you in limbo, not giving you a way to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's excommunication by the back door, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it
like
does very
the
much feel
silence.
like backdoor excommunication. Yeah, it does.
And I think what we forget sometimes, because excommunication, in good company here with Peter, excommunication is a really painful process, and I think on purpose it's a very painful process. However, it is supposed to be a process as part of repentance and allowing you to realign yourself with the church's values. So by not even allowing you to go through a step of this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you'd need to do to realign yourself with the right way of doing things, not even allowing you to be disfellowshipped or excommunicated, court of love, means that you are held in this awful position whereby your local leaders are actually saying to you, we don't want to go there, but you can't participate. That's worse than they would do for anyone else who walked in off the streets.
I don't want to quote my local leaders because, you know, I like to give them their privacy and whatnot in what we talk. But I'll talk broadly about the themes. And one of the themes was very much that, you know, we're not going there. We're not looking into whether you're an apostate or not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to open. It's like, I think, Ruth, you sent me a message the other week saying that your membership in the church is like Schrodinger's cat. And essentially it is. It's, you know, they don't, no one wants to look in the box to find out whether I can actually continue in the church or not. They just want to let me continue doing what I'm doing. Because.
And it does feel as though some of that anger has been triggered by you participating and setting me apart.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which is really interesting that not all of it, but some of their anger has come from how dare you be allowed to participate in that, and it be public knowledge that you participated in a priesthood ordinance, when actually that's something that should not be celebrating, your inclusion, your motivation, your desire to want to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're always like, oh, you know, we'd love you to be involved in the community, get involved in your community. And I'm often, you know, told by local leaders, oh, you need to get more involved in the ward, more involved in the ward. And I'm like, well, I attend, you know, like, what else? What more do you want from me? Oh, come and clean the toilets, this, that, and the other. It's like, but when I try and get involved in my broader LDS community, when I attend church in different areas, get involved in priesthood ordinances with people like Sarah, all of a sudden that's bad. That's bad. Jane.
I should have clarified this before we start the show, but are you comfortable to talk about why you were looking to have a recommend? I mean, let's face it, it would be who's going to be the person who gives Nemo the Mormon a temple recommend, right? Because but it wasn't just about the temple recommend. Are you okay to
I'll talk
share
about that? Yeah,
okay.
so it's about holding that space, because there are people in this chat tonight, I'm sure. There are people watching this video. I hate the phrase within the sound of my voice, but go on. There are people hearing what we're talking about now who need, for various reasons, because of their family, because they can't be open about their non-belief, or they can't be open about their criticisms of the church, or whatever position they're in that isn't fully orthodox, whatever that looks like, their sexual orientation, whatever, because they can't be open about that, because of the, you know, the more conservative ward they live in, or because of family members. They need modeled for them a space whereby they can be a temple recommend holding member And at the moment, they have to stay completely quiet. And I'm trying to model the space where they could actually be honest. Because what they're having to do currently is be dishonest in order to get along. They're having to lie their way through a temple recommend, saying they sustain people they don't, saying they pay tithing when they don't, or whatever it might be. And I'm trying to model that position of, no, I'm going to go into a temple recommend interview. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say I don't sustain them. I'm going to say that I don't pay tithing to the LDS Church. But I have a desire to worship in the house of the Lord, so can I? And then I went through the entire process of taking that all the way to Dallin H. Oakes and saying, he's lied. Oh, well, we can't do anything. Right, well, then we'll get the 70s to investigate. Oh, we can't do anything. Right, Dallin H. Oakes, one of the men accused of lying, one of the men who can speak to whether he was being honest or not, was assigned by the Office of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 to look into the evidences that I presented them with. And he went, oh, talk to Fair Mormon. He gave me nothing. So, and then yet you're still expected to then sustain them.
Yeah. So
I'm not done.
Oh, yeah.
No,
go on, Jane.
it's cool.
Oh, and thank you to Fred Large for his super sticker in the chat, by the way. Thank you very much. Go on.
I feel like, yeah, the gloves off comment, I feel like this is a gloves off night. I want to push you more. I want to, as someone who, if anyone knows you in real life, people know your heart, people know your motivation. I don't want anyone mistaking what is happening here and getting the sense that there's some kind of stunt that is happening.
Yeah.
When you recently asked, or it came about that you needed to have a temple recommend interview, are you comfortable to share with the audience?
Yeah. So, it's about going back. Sorry. No. About yes. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So the other thing that comes with the priesthood, is being able to exercise priesthood ordinances, and I can be open live on air. We know this ordinance that we're about to talk about probably won't happen, and so I would have to have some internal sort of soul searching about how comfortable I would be to do it. But in principle, I was comfortable to do it. But there is an individual that asked me to baptize them. Essentially, there's
yeah.
Is that all right, Jane? Is that a fair? And then Jane can give you more of those.
He's been so
details.
Gentlemanly just because he want to speak. Yeah, because my kid wants to be baptized, which we've talked about on the show many times before. My kid, who my youngest, who came to live with us around about maybe 3 years ago now, and who is incredible and likes the brand of Mormonism that we talk about. We when they first came to live with us, we went through For the Strength of Youth, sat down with them, and before everyone has a heart attack, it was to tell them, okay, so this is not what our family believes. Okay, this part here, we want you to know you may hear things like this at church and it's harmful, and we don't want you to have to experience more pain and trauma than you already have. So we need to talk about what church will be like. And as time went on, they like the sense of community that it offers. They like the possibilities that we've spoken about. They also like the fact that if things are not working, that we can talk about it and that we can, raise our voices and stand for what's right. All those reasons why you joined the church when, that you were told you could do when you were 8. We are in a I don't have a priesthood holder in my home. We don't have any. All of my friends have left the church. My closest priesthood holder is Nemo. And we really wanted Nemo to be the person that would stand with Landon. That Landon had chosen. That's who I would like to perform this baptism. Now, we obviously have to have a crap ton of conversations about what that actually would look like and whether it would be congruous with both Nemo's values and with Landon's values, with our family values, but we needed to start having that conversation. So in order for you to do that, you can't just pitch up at the ward, right, and dunk the kid in the water. So, yeah. Sorry,
so your bishop has to, because I can't go and say I'm a temple recommend holding member of the church. In the handbook, it says that the standard for worthiness in order to be able to participate in blessings and ordinances is holding a temple recommend. or being temple worthy. And I'm going to make this clear because this will keep coming up tonight. What I'm talking about here is if I go to get a temple recommend and I'm denied it, I'm therefore not temple worthy. If I've let it lapse, my temple recommend, then actually it's fine because I've not been asked the questions. So if I just let my temple recommend lapse and not try and get another one, I could crack on and carry on doing everything. But because then when you try and get one, for the reasons that I and many others watching this share, they can't get one, then you're not allowed to, bless your child. You're not allowed to baptize your child. You're not allowed to baptize. There are exceptions for fathers and husbands, but they're at the discretion of your local leaders and whatnot. And they were obviously never going to give me that little golden ticket that I could wave online and say, look, I'm a recommend holding member of the church. They were never going to do that. But it has broader impacts for my ability to be involved in the community, which is why I talk about being a second-class member of the church. Because ultimately it'd be my choice whether I want to baptize someone or bless someone or whatever. But the fact that that option is now taken away means that I am now a tier below, not just people that have temple recommends and people that don't, but people that are able to get them and people that aren't.
So when we spend
And this is
time...
so weird because it's surely not an official thing. I mean,
It's in the handbook.
You mentioned this statement in the handbook, so I'm curious about whether it's new because the church is full of people without temple recommends, baptizing other people, performing priesthood ordinances, blessing the sacrament. It could
None
be
of them are
someone whose
women.
temple recommends just lapsed, or they haven't been to the temple yet. Yes, exactly. And so it's very odd that they keep adding things to the handbook that actually cause havoc on a local level because they put leaders in these very awkward positions where they've decided to fossilize a policy or a position but not thought through the consequences, which is so unlike them, I know, obviously, but and it's a bit like the adjustment they made to defining apostasy is you can't oppose policies as well as doctrines. If you publicly oppose any policy whatsoever of the church, that's technically the stake president is mandatory, must initiate discipline against you. So I think one of the many narratives going on here is, as you've already mentioned in your film, is how local leaders being totally shafted by the apostles, not thinking things through, not being responsible, putting them in impossible conundrums about what they're meant to do. And it's a bit like the new BYU. They've just adjusted, we think, maybe, or maybe they haven't, the code of honor at the Brigham Young universities, where they've re-emphasized LGBTQ people can't hold hands or anything, and you can't have beards, but then they give instructions for having tidy moustaches.
Can I just throw this on screen a second, Peter?
Of contradictions. Yeah.
Daisy May raises one of the core points of tonight's video. I thought you had to be on church discipline to be prevented from exercising priesthood to perform an ordinance. Yeah, that's how it feels. Yeah. But this is why they can discipline me without having to actually discipline me. I'm going to pull up the section of the handbook before you go ahead, Jane, and then I'll come to you.
That's why it's through the back door, because
here we
it's
go.
how
So
we do this.
It says that those who perform or participate, it's 18.3 of the handbook, those who perform or participate in an ordinance or blessing must have the necessary priesthood authority and be worthy. Generally, the standard of worthiness is that associated with holding a temple recommend. However, so this is the exception to the general rule, which is you have to have a temple recommend. As a general rule, that's a general rule. However, this is the exception. As guided by the Spirit and the instructions in this chapter, bishops and stake presidents may allow fathers and husbands who hold the necessary priesthood office to perform or participate in some ordinances and blessings, even if they are not fully temple worthy. Then it says, a priesthood holder who has unresolved serious sins should not participate. So I'm being treated like I have unresolved serious sins, but no one can really... But yeah, I'm not in apostasy because they don't want to go there, they don't want to look at it.
So you may end up being in a position like a lot of women are in the church currently. The ones who are happy are happy, but I named and blessed my child when they came to live with us. They chose their own name, which they now go by. So yeah, if directed by the Spirit you feel that that's the right thing to do, that's awesome, but we are never ever validated in doing it. It's very spiritually traumatic being in this space. But Peter mentioned the consequences, and I think that's what hasn't fully been thought through. Now, I think they've got really good reasons for why they're choosing to act in the way they are, and I think that's something to revisit. But the consequences realistically mean that if at any point we are spending any time together in a group, if anyone's hanging out with Nemo, but like if we all see each other, well, that aside, Nemo can't. If I ask for a blessing, you can't. You don't have the authority to do that. If the little the car breaks down and let's bless the horses, that kind of, you can't do that.
Well, to pull at the heartstrings a little bit, why not use my mother for emotional manipulation? My mother is a single mother, and I'm the only one of her sons who has the priesthood.
Exactly.
I think that's true. I'm the only one of the sons who has the priesthood, I believe. And so, my mum comes to me and says, I've got a problem, I've got a struggle, I've got an issue, could you give me a blessing? Whatever your belief system looks like, whether you believe the priesthood's real or it's made up, are you telling me I now can't have a moment with my mother where I offer her reassurance and comfort in the language that works for her? Is that what we're saying now? Yes, it is. And this is one of the reasons I think it upsets me, because it cuts to the core of what it is to be Mormon and to be a man in Mormonism. And maybe I'm just throwing my toys out the pram because my patriarchy's fallen apart and I'm sad about it. Because, but that's how it could be viewed. But it cuts to the middle of what it is to be Mormon and taking away what my function was within the Mormon Church, which is.
I remember having this conversation with you, Nemo,
Doug
some
Vincent.
time ago, and I know you'd already thought about this, but pointing out that you have more to lose than ever I do of saying I don't believe anymore, because you are white, you are straight, you are male. So the church is a comfy slipper to you.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really is an easy place to have your ego massaged as a white, straight male Mormonism. That is comfy. And so when you go from being Nephi to being Layman or Lemuel, that transition feels a lot more harsh than it would do if you were black, it would do if you were gay, would do if you were female, because we're used to doing it, doing the hard stuff and kicking against things and having to actually be always the second-class citizen. And I'm not crowing about that at all, but what I'm saying is you already had a huge amount of empathy for those things, but you're actually feeling that where it hurts and realizing how very unfair and unthought out the policies and procedures are, and also that there is no process in place. And you suddenly realize that actually the only door that is left open to you to actually have autonomy to walk through yourself is to walk away. The option to stay is to sit in this weird no man's land space.
Basically, got to be
not participate in a full way.
Well, just because I guess we can't have a conversation with 21st century saints in it without referring to harm in some way. Okay. So this is not formal church discipline. This is something that has, if not unilaterally been decided by a bishop, will certainly, Nemo's bishop is bloody, right? Exactly, right? Just let's, because I know that you feel this right? Nemo's bishop is brilliant, is state president, really, really good men, nice people, but this is something that he has had to make a decision on and will have had to consult with his leader. You can't see it, but I can see it. When church discipline has to be invoked, there is some kind of accusation, some kind of concern that the bishop then will have to weigh up. And there is that opportunity for you to present your case. That is not being given to you. They won't even actually define what it is that is the problem. So you're left in this place where you can't even speak to it. Now, in a relationship where that happens, where someone isn't providing you with all of the information and any attempts to get information or clarity, they're either ignoring you or are kind of changing, like a shoal of fish being chased by a giant truth shark. They will go whatever direction, because ultimately the technique was it's stonewalling. And when this happens in relationships, it's a form of abuse. It means that the person who is who's doing the stonewalling won't communicate what the actual issue is, won't resolve that conflict, and whether it's your boss or whether it's a relationship. and it does harm. The only thing that you can do when you're being stonewalled is either to seek clarity or exit that relationship. Now, if you're in if you were a couple, then possibly therapy, that's where that would come in. But all you can do when you're being stonewalled is to pick your boundaries and decide how you're going to stick to them.
It's what you're saying here is coercive control, and it's how do we control you? How do we coerce you into behaving in silence, but they're not giving you a path to the church discipline route is a path to repentance, to be back in full fellowship and full membership in good standing. You're being told you can never, ever find your way back in this church to being in a position of good standing, full fellowship, and a righteous temple worthy priesthood holder ever again, because they won't tell you what you've done wrong. They won't hold formal church discipline, and they won't give you a chance to, in their terminology and their language, to repent and move forward. So what you've actually seen is coercive control. And that's harsh to say about priesthood leaders that we love. That's harsh to say, but actually that's what we're saying.
Jane, Peter?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, isn't the temple recommend interview supposed to be a process where you can make these declarations? You know, disciplinary is different. That's where you defend yourself against the accusations. But you know, if we're really sort of, you know, I was joking about this earlier on, but totally seriously, what have you done for this church?
But I wasn't allowed the opportunity to actually answer the questions because
they won't
it had
even
to be
let
determined first what has changed based on previous interviews and my well-known public persona. That phrase it gets used a lot about, you know, I have a public image now, and I think it's very obvious that is what's driving a lot of the discomfort around just letting me get on. And I'm not going to speak for my bishop. I'm not going to say he said this because he didn't, but my reading into it would be that were I not were I not acting as Nemo the Mormon online, if I'd gone, I pay my tithes to charity, he would have gone, that's all right. That's the sense that other members would be afforded that sort of grace, that sort of, you know, or if I'd gone, you know what, I'm going to pay it all in fast offerings because then I know it'll actually be managed well, because it will help people in the ward, it'll help, you know, I'm going to pay all my tithings as a fast offering instead, whatever. That would be acceptable for other people, not for me, because I publicly embarrassed the church by challenging them on their lies.
But the last question, because a temple recommend interview can sometimes be a very long, lengthy conversation, and the last question is always, do you consider yourself worthy to enter the temple or the house of the Lord, whatever it is? And that is actually the key question, because nobody is perfect. No bishop thinks that the member sitting in front of them is perfect. No bishop is perfect. No quorum of the 15 is perfect. No prophet of this church is perfect. And therefore, that question is the fundamental one. If you consider yourself worthy, then it's between you and your God. And if there is a pearly gates, if there is a clipboard of past misdemeanors, then that will be for you to have that conversation at that time. And really, him as a judge in Israel has done his part. He's given you an opportunity to self-reflect and come to a conclusion about where you sit with your God. And if you feel comfortable saying, yes, I feel worthy to enter, his job's done.
Yeah. And there's people in the chat are saying, do you pay tithes? Not to the LDS
church.
Ruth,
where you're saying about...
Go on, Zara.
Yeah, I just want to say, when Ruth was saying a very valid point about actually it's between you and your God, as you all know, Jane and I have had many, many conversations with priesthood leaders, lawyers, people in this church about sexual offenders, wife abusers, a huge of people being at church. And one of the things that we've been told is, well, if there's no conviction, and if we speak to the person and they deny it, there's not really anything we can do. It's between them and the Lord.
Yeah.
Well, if they can take that view when there's been allegations of abuse, well, you know, it's between that person and the Lord.
We already know the church takes apostates far more seriously than they take abusers.
Right.
We know
and
this.
And that is the powerful point I wanted to make there. That's
sorry to steal your thunder. Sorry, Sarah.
No. You know, that's absolutely perfect. Why are they taking you, the they can't leave this between you and the Lord and take you at your word that you want to go and worship in the temple? Why can they not take you at your word? And the other thing that really frustrates me about all of this is we are taught and told over and over and over and over again in the church that the place we will be closer to God than anywhere else on this earth is inside the temple.
Yeah.
So why, if they think you are struggling with your faith and your obedience in their view, why do they not think the very best place for you to be is the temple, so you can be the closest to God possible and feel that spirit and that power?
Even taking a really
instead we
cynical
keep away.
view, for those in the comments who are like, it's all made up, it's all nonsense, it's all rubbish, let me get on your level for a moment. Why not let me go to the one place where I'm going to be indoctrinated into cult behavior more by doing repetitive activities and being forced into elevation emotion and a windowless room and peer pressure? Send me there. If you want to get me in line, send me there. If I'm getting on the level of those in the comments who would do that.
So it doesn't make sense. They're keeping you away from the place you should be closest to God, and they're keeping you away from the place that they could.
Well, the pinnacle of Mormon
indoctrinate.
religious worship is what they're keeping me away from.
Yeah.
That's what it's meant to be.
Which also,
Peter?
Other sheep commented earlier, that's how they create liars. And, you know, because this starts with when you're young, these worthiness interviews become a theatre of the absurd. Because as a teenager, if you don't learn to lie pretty early on and you keep confessing that you're masturbating or seeing pornography or something, which pretty much everyone does, you get put through a mincing machine of completely dysfunctional, you know, repentance scrutiny and that sort of thing. So most young people, if they've got any sense, learn to start lying early about that, you know, to avoid the shame cycle and all that. You're still racked with guilt, but you just learn not to tell them about it.
That's why I'm trying to model honesty in temple recommend interviews.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And now, and here we are with this situation where you're actually being honest, and you're not just being honest about your feelings about things, you're being honest about the reality. The reality that the apostles leading this church lie regularly in public. And anyone who wants to look at the evidence knows this. Multitudes of people know this, and they are admitting it. And people like us who are dissidents are often said, why are you going public? And you're being punished here for being public with your concerns. Why haven't you resolved this through proper priesthood authorities? Just go and have a talk with your bishop, get them to deal with it. They can ask up the line to the general authorities. Well, the almost unique situation here is you did that. You took these concerns to your bishop and stake president, and they took them to the area presidency following this line of priesthood authority. And they literally took it to the 12 apostles and the first presidency, who formally said, yes, it is appropriate that you approached us with this. We are, in effect, going to engage in a church discipline process. We've assigned Dallin Oakes to the first presidency, the man who's next in line to be president of the church. We'll investigate these allegations about 7 apostles lying, and we will get back to you. Well done, you've done the right thing. But then they didn't offer any defense whatsoever,
him 3 months
which
to say,
was a
go to
tacit
Fair
admission.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted.
The context for that will be in the description. I'll put it in after the show. It'll be in the show notes, so you'll be able to see the episode I did with Mormon stories and all that. Yeah.
So you are now being effectively told, if you don't start lying, you're never going to use your priesthood or have a temple recommend again. If you don't start lying morally, ethically, intellectually, lying to yourself, and I want you to sit here and lie to my face, that you sustain liars as apostles. Because until you can stop saying the truth out loud and sit here in my office, whether it's bishop or stake president, and look me in the eye and say you sustain people we both know are liars, and perjure yourself before God like that. You know, they claim to be representing Jesus in those interviews. You will not again have a temple recommend or the priesthood.
And
it's appalling. It's a complete ethical debacle, and they are failing to fulfill their responsibilities.
Ruth, then Jane.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So So the process that you followed that has, I think, caused you the most public scrutiny in the eyes of the Q15, because I don't think they're watching Mormon stories, and I don't think they're listening to LDS discussions or personally, I don't think they. I think the thing that's made them squirm is you asking that question and presenting the evidence.
Yeah.
Now, and voting opposed, and because you've got a forum that noise gets out there, you're not just the guy sat with a red shirt in general conference. You have a little bit more of a platform. You voted opposed and you raised your concerns. Now, correct me on the details here, Sarah and Jane, if I get this wrong. The UK church lawyer, Andrew Ford, in 2019 spoke to the Charities Commission, gave evidence about why at that point they didn't think we need DBS checks, because we had a robust process in the UK where we could vote opposed if we had concerns about somebody.
Exactly
So,
right.
is it okay to vote opposed or is it not okay? Because if that process is part of our robust, in 2019, that's not that long ago, if at that point the spokesman for the church in the UK was telling the government of the UK essentially that there was a process that we had as members of the church which was robust. It was a whistleblower policy. We supported people. We wouldn't get rid of people for standing up and saying, this person that I have concerns about. If that process really had integrity, if they really believed that process was robust, you wouldn't be in the position you're now in.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm being punished for... Because the thing is, with voting opposed, you vote opposed and then the concerns get resolved and then you're able to sustain that person. That's the ideal, right? But there's no way to resolve these concerns because the only people that can resolve them were presented with them, promised to deal with them, and never did. Jane?
I don't know that I agree with... I love what you said, Peter. I don't know if I see it like that's what Nemo would have to do in order to be a member of the church with a temple recommend and have credibility within the system. Simply because they won't even ask the question. This isn't even about giving him the opportunity to, okay, if you just lie, then we'll give you it, then that will be fine. Nemo could lie his way through an interview if he bloody well wanted to.
Oh, trust me, I've had plenty of examples from senior leaders of the church of how to use your own unique definitions to make it look like you're telling the truth.
Right, but Nemo has integrity and Nemo does it. So, he's got no need to do it. Fact-checking is what Nemo does. And the problem is, if I give you the opportunity to just ask you the question, then I will have to act. And this is what what I have a problem with is
where
that
maybe some of the cowardice comes in that you were talking about.
I find it exactly that. I find it cowardly. I find that what it in effect does is it puts you in a position where you can not progress in church. I mean, we're told if you're not progressing, you're going backwards. Okay, so you can exist in church, you can be there, but we won't even ask you fundamental questions. We're not even going to give you an opportunity to engage as an active member, but you can show up and take the sacrament if you want to. But I mean, if I have to actually make a decision about your activity, if I really think about it, and I don't want to do that. So it's much easier to stonewall you and pretend that it doesn't exist, and it puts you in this terribly unhealthy situation. What they really want, and I don't believe this just applies to you, this applies to this Brit Venger space. We're all really traumatized by this exact thing. You want us to leave, don't you? You think your life would be a lot easier if we were not here. The problem that I think they see very clearly is, as Peter can speak to excommunicate someone in this day and age would be madness. They know what happens. They know the PR nightmare that it would be. But what they've done is they've done it anyway, but they've done it in all but name. You certainly have membership restrictions placed upon you right now, and there is no part of the handbook that where that is okay.
Well, what they've done is far worse than if they actually had the courage to go for excommunication, which they haven't. But if
Can I-
they did, it
Can
would
I speak
be
to Maxine
this is our
Kennedy's
work.
point? Because I think Maxine Kennedy in the comments is saying, I'm sorry Nemo feels punished, but if you poke the bear, don't be surprised or feel hurt when it bites you back. This is true. Absolutely, Maxine. And I don't want anyone to think this is a pity party for, Nemo feels like the church are being mean to him, even though he goes after them all the time. Absolutely. And even if they excommunicated me, I wouldn't be there like, this is terrible, I never saw this coming. I'd be like, yeah, all right. But they're not excommunicating me. This is the thing that's weird and we're exploring and is somewhat frustrating, is that I'm being put in this weird limbo state. No one's coming down and actually the bear's not biting me back. The bear just keeps prowling around me in the woods, threatening to do something, but then saying, when I'm going, all right, you're going to go for it, they're like, I'm just actually pretending you're not here. I'm just going on my nightly stroll.
I think it's
But
actually
also,
worse
our
than
larger point here, our larger point here is it shouldn't be a bear. It shouldn't be a bear. It shouldn't be pokeable. It should be patient. It should be loving kindness. It should be rational. It should have integrity. So, yes, we know this pokes the bear, but what we're getting at basically is telling the truth pokes the bear. Doing what the bear told you to do, what it raised you to do, to have integrity, to vote opposed when you know leaders are dangerous and threatening and not worthy of their calling by the church's own standards, which is all you've done. When you actually do what the church told you to do, it will punish you for it. It will punish you for being a lifelong learner. It will punish you. I've had so many conversations recently with people starting on their journey of trust crisis, just who've served in all kinds of callings and have just had enough of it. And it's this, that the thing the church taught us to be, it ends up punishing you for and shaming you for, using your brain, having integrity, expecting honesty of the leaders. Well, I mean, this is insane. It's absolutely mad.
Ruth, then Sarah, then Jane. I think that was the order we were in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I was going to say, I think it's slightly worse than just excluding you, because what it makes you is a dangerous person to be associated with for active believing members. So that ripples through your family, it ripples through your church friendships, it ripples through community. It make it dangerous for people that are jumping into the comments as believing members. You are now associating with somebody that the church thinks is dangerous, in the same way that Nemo's photograph by some over-exuberant volunteer arrived at the pageant as this is somebody dangerous to be looking out for. You are associating with somebody that the church is doing the equivalent of siloing and shunning. They are making it so, if you choose to sit next to you on a pew, Nemo, if you choose to share a hymn book, where does it end if there's not a process? Because I know I was an active member for many years. I know the model for how to deal with somebody who's been disfellowshipped, who's been excommunicated, and how to still welcome and have them participate. I don't know how to deal with this when somebody, if I was an active believing member, how to deal with somebody that is in this strange place whereby I know that the church is not happy with them. I know he's not going to be given a calling. I know he's not going to be welcome to attend the temple. Probably not going to be allowed in the chapel on his own unattended. Probably not going to be asked to do a musical item at church. The
musical item they've asked me to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do I interact with that person on a Sunday? How do I interact with them as their home teacher, minister, whatever, ministering teacher? How do I not, through my lack of knowledge, actually aid their journey out of the church?
Yeah, Suzanne de Haven puts it very well. I basically got a black mark on my church record. It was interesting, just before we go to Sarah and Jane, I was socialising yesterday with some friends who have left the church, but I know I do have friends. It was a subtle ruse to make people feel sympathy for me. I was with some friends yesterday, and their family are still active believing members. And they didn't know what to do with me because they know what I do. They know what I do online here, and they fundamentally disagree with it. But then I'm there, they're trying to be lovely, and I'm there playing guitar with them and chatting, and we're singing together. And you've got this dissonance that's in them because they're like, well, yeah, but he is still one of us because he's not been excommunicated. So, but I don't, like you said, Ruth, they don't know how to interact with me. And I'd love to be able to model that. It would be great to model that? Because, you know, I'm willing to put myself through all sorts of things just to model good behaviour. Sarah, then Jane, please.
Well, I was going to say some of what Ruth said, but that's why what they're doing to you is far worse than if they activated church discipline and put their money where their mouth is. Because what we've got yet again, with the problem with the church, they are not prepared to put their money where their mouth is and act on what they're talking about. It's like they don't believe their own stuff. Oh, this Nemo the Mormon's dangerous. He's in apostasy. He's not worthy to go to the temple. But they're not prepared to put their money where their mouth is and actually say, do you know what? We are going to hold a disciplinary council and we are going to sort this out.
It's almost like they don't want to give me a platform to defend myself against the accusations. And I've been open and honest with my leaders about the definition of apostasy, you know. The definition of apostasy... Oh, why am I saying this online? You look at the definition of apostasy in the handbook, I meet some of the criteria, right? It's almost like it's almost like the thing that saved me for so long, which was the nuance and the flexibility and the kindness in many ways of my priesthood leaders, is now the thing that actually stops them just doing what they should do, looking at the handbook and going, this guy meets this, let's have the disciplinary council. If the disciplinary council isn't a foregone conclusion, which we often treat it like it is, if it isn't, if it is truly what it purports to be, an opportunity to counsel me on how I can remain in good standing in the church, then let's have one. Yeah. Because that's clearly what I need. Absolutely. But they won't do it because they don't want to bring the High Council in and let me talk to the whole High Council and be like, right, here's my evidence of how the First Presidency and Cromwell XII are lying to you. They don't want to do that.
But they don't want it to own the internet, do they? They don't want it to own the internet, and it would.
Yeah.
So I am in love with the fact that whether you love or hate Nemo the Mormon, whether you're a Mormon or an ex-Mormon, everyone can get behind on this. Like the fact that it seems like the Brit Vengers tonight are calling for Nemo's excommunication. Like, just excommunicate him if you're gonna do it. Just shoot me in the face. Just anyway, I did have a point. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
I love you, Nemo. Honestly, I wasn't calling for the church to excommunicate.
The church members committee are watching this. They're having a field day. They're just.
Brit Vengers are going to excommunicate him for
it. Be like, that's what we've been saying.
No. It's the thing that I'm really stuck on here is the fact that we can't actually even discuss the crime that you're supposed to have been accused, you know, with your leaders. There isn't any opportunity to talk about the fact that although so many people hate it, you have helped a lot of people. A hell of a lot of people, and that where the church takes communicate you, this church is better because you were there, you were doing this work. Children are safer, members are more mentally healthy. We know what to do with tough questions now. We have seen how you do not have to put on the face of a TBM. You can actually be really you and bring all of yourself to church, but that's too uncomfortable a conversation for our leaders to have. They can't see that value that actually other people are trying to tell them. I emailed Nemo's bishop this week to talk about that exact thing and how important he has been in my life. When I am having a spiritual struggle, it's these guys I call on because my ward's buggered off. This is it. This is what church community is like. And I am telling you right now, hear it prophetically. If you decide that Nemo is not good enough to be a member of this church, if you have to sever those connections, then a lot of people are going to leave because they will not see that this is a church where they can be welcome. And here's how to make it work. When we go home from church, when we are having these conversations, we have our own families. None of our families understand how it is that this space means so much to us. They know that the most mentally healthy thing for our well-being is to just leave. This is madness, right? However, they're here supporting us, trying to make this a safe space. I mean, when even your family, who have your best interests at heart, know that the right thing to do is, you know what, maybe do you have to keep begging to be in this fucking space? Seriously. Since
Yeah.
when is that what the church is about?
I know. Can I
Well,
say that
can I-
is
can I
intense
speak
for
to-
Jane swore that for Jane to say the F word online, that is powerful.
Nobody tell my kids.
You do.
We're
No, no.
raging.
I'm already
She's having a wee
messaging the
rag.
kids.
Anyway, I want to speak to Jeffrey Cruz's comment as well here. You're not looking for a church court as a platform, because that's wrong as well. Right, yeah, I'm not... Okay, excommunication, we're into this rabbit hole now. Let me tell the church my game plan. So, excommunication is essentially just another step in this proceeding. If that is the step that gets taken, it's no more a, see, finally my end game has arrived. It's none of that. It's right, okay, this is clearly the next step for someone like me. We have this council, and then a decision gets made about whether I get to continue acting the way I'm acting or whether I don't. And then that allows you to either progress one way or progress another way. It's not the end of the story. For me, certainly, it wouldn't be the end of the story. My YouTube channel's not going to disappear just because I get excommunicated. As me and Peter have very firmly established, it's much like the Jedi. If you strike us down, we only become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
You become a force ghost.
We become force ghosts and just haunt the crap out of future podcasters. So, you know, Mormonism with the Murph will have me just appear over his shoulder saying, use the force, sort of thing, right? Shout out to Mormonism with Murph, go check out his channel. But that's, you know, this is not like a big publicity stunt. I'm sure a lot of people would be very interested to see it happen, and it would, absolutely. But, you know, it's just another part of the process. It's part of the process of seeing
It's
just
a load
how
of
far
fun.
can you go in holding the church accountable while remaining in the in-group.
Well, there's a personal salvation issue in the according to the church's theology at stake here for you as well. So they should actually love and care about you enough to be concerned about your eternal spiritual welfare, and to say to you, Nemo, we can't let you continue like this. We are going to take these steps in this action because we need to help you move forward.
Yeah.
Is that on loan? Is it, Peter, for excommunication courts?
Yeah.
Excellent.
We'll
But
pass.
Sarah,
on
are we
that.
actually? We're at the point now where we're saying, "If you love me, try and excommunicate me." Is that?
Well,
Because
do you know
Suzanne
what?
de Haven's saying you can ask for
I'm doing my
excommunication, but that's not
here.
what we're doing here.
No, we're not. No, we're not. What
No.
we're asking for is the church to give a fair message to Nemo. Very, very clear. Let's be clear here. What we are saying is, if you believe this man is unworthy, and you believe this man is not worthy of exercising his priesthood power and authority, he is not worthy of entering the house of the Lord, then you, church, take your responsibility to love and nurture and his eternal spiritual welfare seriously, and you take the steps that should be taken to allow him to repent and move forward.
And
If you do believe
conversely, if you present yourself
Yeah.
as a worthy person to enter the temple, then ask the questions. Give him his recommend.
Absolute-
This is a
absolutely.
good, worthy man.
It is, and if you're not going to take those steps, then actually the church need to ask themselves where they're at with everyone who wishes to stand up and oppose the church in any matter whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Can I just come in on that?
Mhm.
Today in in Sacrament, you know, someone commented, someone said in a prayer, you know, thanking God that we live in a free country where we have freedom to worship. And I always find that a bit triggering now, because I'm sitting in the same room where my court of love was held to excommunicate me, clearly making it me unfree to worship. And this is what they're doing to Nemo. They're taking his you know, we keep talking about freedom, and this is Dallin Oaks' stupid obsession, religious freedom, but he doesn't practice it within his own faith. And that's what all of this boils down to. The fact that we're talking about these and all these other issues, and in a sense, you could say it's performative, but the point is to show people what's really going on, because normally they do these controlling and evil things to people and they go away quietly. And what's happening now is people are saying, no, we're not letting you keep doing this quietly. We're challenging you. We're holding a mirror up to yourself. What are you doing, and are you thinking about what you're doing, and how does it have integrity when it contradicts all these scriptures and everything you claim to be about? And then these conflicts play out, and you may become a martyr, and it's a role, and it's not one any of us asked for. But you kind of proceed anyway. And there's T.S. Eliot did, not that I've read him much, a sort of a weird play called Murder in the Cathedral, and it has Thomas Becket agonizing because he knows the king has sent some knights to come and basically murder him in the cathedral as a martyr, and he could run away, but he chooses not to. But he's having that dilemma of why am I doing this? Am I doing this on purpose? Is it attention seeking? He knows he'll get a one-way ticket to heaven as a martyr. Am I doing it for the right reason? And there's this dialogue he's having with himself. And that's quite kind of powerful. That is what any dissident or people speaking up to be a critical friend of the church has to grapple with. We agonize over our motivations and what we're doing it for, and so on. And people can easily mock and say, "Oh, you're just attention seeking, or you're doing it for the money." But the point is, it's about holding up a mirror to a dysfunctional system. People have to see and hear and understand and feel the pain of what it does to other people, especially if it's not doing it to you at the moment. You need to understand why the majority of people who join this church leave almost immediately. You need to understand why the vast majority of the children raised in this church will be gone by their 20s, which they are, the vast majority. You need to understand why it's ground to a halt and now shrinking rather than growing. It's because of this. And ask yourself some big questions. Can we change this?
Can
Am
I
I
jump
going to
in
carry
there,
on
Peter,
tolerating
for a
this?
second?
Yeah.
I want to just before we jump to Sarah, I want to throw up this comment from Nick Johnson. One thing they could do is ask Nima to resign his membership. Maybe. I fully believe that by this point, were I not public in this way, were I just critical and I had all these concerns, they'd be like, that maybe. I mean, I have had it said to me, but not in these words. I've had the phrase said to me: some people's journeys, take them out of the church, and that's what's best for them. The implication being, you might be happier just leaving. It's like, well, no, that's not the solution, because they would until everyone does it, and then you have no church left, which is exactly what's going on.
Which is
in
what's
Sunday
happening.
School today.
It's happening already.
Before I wanted to throw myself out of a window because we were reading from the Truth Will Prevail book published in the 1980s, which is a very whitewashed history of the early church. Anyway, they're saying, by the time of this publishing, so, 1980s or whatever, the church has 41 stakes. 40 stakes it was, 40 stakes. And then someone's like, do we know how many we've got now? I was like, 41. We had 45, and then 4 of them shut down.
So far.
Isn't that a powerful message?
In 40 years, pretty much, give or take, we've gained net 1 stake.
Sarah, what was that
That's
comment
Sarah,
that you
yeah.
made about church attendance? the other day?
Church attendance. I went to Ward the other week, and there were about 17, 18 people there. And I was talking to Jane. I said, I have more people in my house for Sunday lunch some weeks than that. By the time all my kids and grandkids, there's more of us gathered for Sunday lunch in an entire ward. And it's and the other bit is 2, and this is 2 out of my last 3 bishops have left the church. Right, that is powerful. That is powerful. And we're talking in about 6 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that makes my current bishop feel, but that's really...
Yeah.
Ruth, then Peter.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I remember you saying as well, Sarah, that your primary was down to like 1 child now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
we have no young women's programme because we have no young women. We have 1 child in primary, and the young men programme consists of siblings.
And I'm really sorry to make light of it, but I was discussing that with my children today, who are all adults now, and it's dark humour, I know, but we were just imagining the primary presentation. This poor 7-year-old has the hour.
With the spotlight.
It's like when you've got a High
I know.
Council visiting, but they haven't even got a wife to trade off with.
No.
They've got to do this.
Yeah.
It's on one 7-year-old shoulders. You're doing the whole presentation.
Well,
And then
I
the
was laughing
nativity at Christmas, they're playing all the roles. You
Oh,
just
you know,
carry the donkey.
absolutely. Well,
So
I
what
was
we
laughing
saw-
with Jane about the fact that what we're going to actually have is it's your turn to give a talk. Oh, it's your turn to read the scripture. Now can you say the prayer? And this kid's going to be doing everything. The prayer, the scripture, the reading, the article of faith, the do-do-do-do-do. It's just...
What we saw today in
it's
Oxford
unsustainable, isn't it?
was a family, a young family leaving. So 18-month-old kid and the mum and dad. They were only here for a year. And the bishop said something that was interesting. He said, we've reached that time of year where we lose a lot of members and then we hope that we will gain some more wonderful members. Oxford Ward is run basically by Americans coming over to Oxford University and doing MBAs at the Said Business School. That's what Oxford Ward, like, everyone is an American that's here doing their DPhil or their masters or their whatever. They're all here studying. It's the only reason the ward has got anything. And even my home ward, which used to be over 100 members attending, you've got maybe 60, of which 20 are visitors. So you're getting down in the numbers. They have no young women's either. And that's one of the more solid wards in the stake. Jane?
Just Suzanne DeHaven's comment asking about missionary work. No, it's not happening here. The church isn't growing here. I mean, there's maybe one or two, but even my child has been asking for baptism, and no one wants to teach my child. Yeah. No one. We've asked about the matter. No one wants to teach my child. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if missionary work just now looks like national service, and maybe the missionaries don't want to. Maybe they're having a real struggle with the church themselves, and they don't want to. What could be going on there?
The sister missionary in our ward. This is a tangent, but it's worth it, I promise. We have a sister missionary in our ward from Iraq. Get your head around that. Wow. An Iraqi native whose dad was studying in the UK, became a convert to the church, went back, and has essentially single-handedly started the church in Iraq. There's like 4 or 5 families that meet in an apartment, right? And you're like, okay, right. And you can tell when she's there, it's like she loves the church. This is because it's been a struggle for her, and but those convert families are solid because they're in a country where, you try and convert someone, and it could be all sorts of problems. Quite dangerous actually to be a member of the church there. So anyway, I just thought that was really interesting.
I was
what they're sacrificing. There's so many good. There's so many great people. The church really helps people. We've got some. It's a ragtag bunch. Most of the converts now are single men migrants, basically, across the country. If you've got any, and that's certainly the case going on for us. And the church gives them community, it gives them hope, it gives them some stability, but it's donkey's years since anyone baptized a nuclear middle class family. I mean, that if that ever happens, it's a long ago thing. The church can help people. The church should be the community that looks after you in your old age. And that social contract has been broken now because these leaders have created such a hostile environment for its own children. The people who grew up in the church and were educated to love truth and have integrity are being driven away by these leaders demanding that you lie, that you put up with lies, that you ignore lies. And that's what it all boils down to. And so they're gone, and now their parents don't have a community to look after them in their old age because there's no one there to do the compassionate service anymore. And all the converts are really struggling, desperate people on the whole. Which is unbalanced because they need the other people who've got more stable lives to give them the support they need. But all they've got is each other, which is not enough. So the
Peter,
whole fabric of this
we've descended into more
congregation,
more broad issues of the church in the UK, which we can cover certainly at another time. But as we know, this is all about me. So let's get back to me. No, I think it's looking about time to wrap up. But Jane had a point, so I want to hear what Jane's got to say.
Well, I guess I wanted to just ask you just to drill down the question that or the point that you're making in the title of your show. Is there anything that you can do the church, is the church going to excommunicate you for it? Like, can you literally kick a
there's-
puppy up and down the front of Temple Square and nothing happens?
There's plenty of things I could do to get excommunicated, but that's not the point.
Nah,
You know,
don't
I could start
believe
raving in. I think if I started actually making a problem in my home board, if I kept getting up at testimony meeting and just rambling on about this, that, and the other, polygamy, all that. But the problem is, Oxford
Nemo, are
was
you
so
allowed
nuanced.
to get up in testimony meeting?
Yeah, I got up in testimony meeting in front of Gerrit Gong, right?
So
in
you
front
can
of
do that.
Elder
You can
Gong
do
of
that.
yes, I can do that. I can get up in testimony meeting. Elder Gong comes to me afterwards, shakes my hand, thanks me for my testimony. So, you know,
Nah,
I'm
you're
clearly
too
not that bad a
cute.
guy.
You are too sweet and too adorable, and no one's going to excommunicate you, and that's the reason. And the entire Mormon spectrum can agree on that.
Yeah. Well, actually,
You're
I
the hot
think.
plug of Mormonism, Nemo, face it.
Yeah. Has anyone got any final thoughts? Have you got any final thoughts?
Hang around.
Nothing.
I mean, I'm excommunicated,
Uh-huh.
but I have a lovely time on a Sunday with my old friends. I haven't strayed far, and they're just pleased to see me. And I think a good percentage of that is I'm one of the last two people of their old friendship group who's still there, and I'm the excommunicated one. And ultimately, I'm planning to inherit the billions. So just be determined, Nemo. Keep coming. If they do X you, just keep going, because eventually you'll be the state president, because there'll be no one else. You know,
This is true.
and the attitudes do start to change when the reality dawns that they have no one else left and you're all there is, and you actually care. You suddenly, weirdly, it starts to turn around again. And I'm starting to sense this is what I'm experiencing.
Okay.
So as well as inheriting the vast wealth, give it time, because when they realise all their own kids left and all their friends have gone, you're all that's left to talk to from the old days, and they love it and they're pleased to see you.
Well, so
This is, I'm living your future.
here's two things I want to say.
That's
just
what I'm happening.
To wrap
Yeah.
up. The first is in the spirit of full transparency and honesty, because I espouse those things, is that, I had a conversation with my bishop about, is there a way in which I could say that I sustain the first presidency? Could I say that I sustain them by trying to hold them accountable by calling out their lies? And that's not the most acceptable. The good thing, anyone who wants to get through a temple recommend interview, this is the church going to hate. Doctors hate this guy for this secret. Church leaders hate this guy for his one secret to get through a temple recommend interview. You're not lying if you're using a specific individualized definition. If sustaining to you means something different to what the rest of it means to the church, you're like, I sustain them by my own internal definitions. The key, don't share that with the person interviewing you. That's my advice. Don't tell him that, I sustain them because I hold them accountable. Isn't that what we're meant to do? Oh, you mean be obedient to them and listen to their every word, think that they're God. Oh, right, yeah, sorry, I can't do that. Thank you very much to H. Benzula for your donation. Thank you very much. People, please donate in the chat, whatever, all that sort of stuff. But the real final point of all this, I'm going to make my face nice and big on the screen for this. The real final point that I want to leave you all with is that this is all a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and really, I've just had the second anointing. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night.